like nostalgic
Movie review.
Nerdy.
Married man.
Well, hello, everybody.
Welcome back to new and nostalgic movie reviews. I'm David.
And I'm Steven. And this is our first time trying to do things over Discord / Zoom / whatever. So bear with us.
It'll be fine.
Yes. Well,
Today
as we told you... Oh, go ahead.
We'll cut that out.
Yes.
You go ahead.
All right. Well, today, as we said last week, we are doing my bad pick for The Lodge.
Yes, The Lodge. It's a 2019 film. It is rated R, and it is an hour and 48 minutes. The synopsis is, a soon-to-be stepmom is snowed in with her fiancé's 2 children at a remote holiday village. Just as relations begin to thaw between the trio, some strange and frightening events take place.
Yes, and in this movie, we have Riley Keough, Jaden Martell, Leah McHow, Richard Armitage, Alicia Silverstone, Danny Keough, and Lola Skye Reed. This is a very small cast movie. The only people you're probably going to know in this is Alicia Silverstone, which she's in the movie for maybe like 5 minutes. Obviously, she was like Batgirl, and she was Cher from Clueless. And then Jaden Martell, the oldest son in this, he is actually from the It movie.
And if you actually watched Marvel's The Eternals, you will recognize Leah McHugh because she plays Sprite.
Oh, nice. I actually haven't watched that yet.
Oh, it's
oh wait,
it's fun.
Wait, Eternals.
It's
Yeah, I did watch The Eternal. Oh, I didn't realize that was Sprite. Holy crap. Well, that's really cool then.
And then, I mean, Riley Keough has done a lot of stuff too, and she's pretty good. She was in like Mad Max Fury Road and stuff like that. She always does great.
Yeah, and she does do great in this movie too. I will say she has a fantastic performance.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The video thing is kind of hard.
It definitely is a little bit. That's why I gave that warning. Just bear with us these next couple episodes. We're going to try to get back to regular, but...
Yeah, Riley does really good like carrying the movie. Along with the 2 child actors, they have their moments, but I think they do really good.
I think the acting is really good in the movie. I just think that the material they were given to act wasn't as up to par.
Well, I also think as far as the 2 kids, I think it's mostly Mia. That character just, I don't know, a lot of her stuff doesn't hit home like it probably should. And it probably is due to the material and the direction.
Yeah. This is just a very, very bizarre movie. I guess like my first thoughts about this is just the twist in this movie is so bizarre, so out there. It kind of is foreshadowed a lot at the beginning. Second time watching this movie for me, I really caught up on a lot of clues that I didn't the first time. But to the same extent, it's one of those things for me, like I say with Home Alone, like I said during the Jumanji movie, kids coming up with these elaborate, ridiculous, insane plans that I just don't even know how anyone could come up with, let alone a child. Just always seems ridiculous to me.
Well, if you think about it, this is almost it's the same premise as any 90s, early 2000s Disney comedy family movie where there is a new step parent or potential step parent involved, and the kids kind of come up with little schemes to mess with the step parent to get rid of them. This is a very similar premise, but a lot darker.
Yes, a lot darker, way twisted. Like, as much as the kids want to say that she's twisted, the things that they come up with for this are way twisted than anything she's ever done in her life, probably.
Well, and I think what I like about this movie is it makes you feel bad in that way, like it could be twisted, but also every character in this movie is a victim in their own right. And on top of that, they have reasons for doing the things they do, which we'll go to in the spoilers. But there's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
That is true. I guess, is there anything else you want to say about the movie before we kind of get into the spoilers, or?
Yeah, I think it definitely has a lot of great like effective atmosphere. It's very chilling. It's a tense, anxiety-inducing movie.
Yeah.
I think I love the way the movie is shot. There's a lot of wide angles and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
like camera like creative camera angles that just leave you feeling uneasy. And I mean, you just keep waiting for something to happen. It's just because the whole time you just feel like something is going to happen. You just have that tense buildup. And what I like about this movie is it doesn't have a lot of those like cheap jump scares or fake outs and stuff. It's a
It's
slow
true.
building movie. And though that's also a downfall, it feels very slow, but it takes patience to watch it, but it does pay off in some effective ways.
Yeah, no, that's all fair. And like you said, the cinematography, I also say, is just really, really great. And some of the things in this movie, they're abrupt but like shocking.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the thing that kind of like threw me for a loop. There's a certain character, we'll get into it more in the spoilers, but I was really hoping to see this character a lot more in the movie. And the way things end with that character, I was just like, whoa, wasn't expecting that at all. Like there was no build up to it at all. And which is the one of the things for this. There's movies like full of build up and a lot of tension, like you said, but also it just like there's some moments that have no build up with just instant shock.
And it's nice because the instant shock, it's like a real feeling of shock. It is not
Yes.
like a stupid loud noise jump scare that's going to make you jump out of your seat. It's actually doing what it's supposed to do, and it's doing it with meaning. It's not just a cheap tactic.
Fair, fair. Anything else you want to say about it before we go in?
Uh, I think it's worth. I enjoyed the movie, and I also did not. I think it's worth. I think it's worth watching if you are like if you're a fan of a lot of those jump scary movies or something like The Nun or something like that. This movie might not be for you, but if you like some of those slow burn horror movies like The Witch or Hereditary, you're probably gonna enjoy this movie too. But probably not as much because I don't
Yeah.
think it's as effective because like Hereditary is so much better.
Yeah.
But if you like that feeling, that style of a movie, then will find some enjoyment in this. So I recommend at least giving it a watch if you like that style of horror movie.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm gonna have to agree. I think if you like the actors and actresses in this movie, and you want to see kind of the cinematography kind of things we're talking about, and you're kind of wanting one of those slow burn tension building movies, I think it could be a fun one to watch. But I also don't think this is one that I would ever own, and I don't know how many times I'm gonna ever rewatch this. Like I think this is probably my last time watching it.
I'd agree with you right there. And one more thing, this movie does do a good job if you like trying to guess what's going to happen. There are a lot of times you think you know what's going to happen, but there are like two pretty good twists in the middle and at the end of this movie that it's like it did a really good job with them. So it keeps you guessing the whole movie on what is actually going on.
Yeah,
So
and
it might be worth checking out.
I will put a little small trigger warning in this one for people who are triggered by like cults or people who are triggered by suicide. There is a little bit of both of that in this movie, so just a heads up.
So with that, next week, before we move on, we are going to be taking a look at my good pick. We're looking at the Lego Movie.
Woohoo!
So join us next week for that. Watch it if you want beforehand. And with that, we are moving on to the spoilers.
Bum, bum, bum.
So
Alrighty.
you go ahead and go first.
Well, do we want to talk about like the downfalls first or the highlights first, or are we gonna try to
I think we should just
kind of go through the movie?
yeah, let's kind of go through the movie, go with our highlights and downfalls as we go on.
So right off the bat at the beginning of this movie, we see two kids with their dad, and we see them like talking, and their dad's talking to them about having to hang out with his girlfriend at the time or whatever. Wait, does it start with the funeral? I can't remember.
No, it actually about 5 minutes in, it gets to that. It starts out
Okay.
with the kids and their mother kind of getting ready for the day, and the mother seems very sad and distraught. And she takes her kids on a car ride over to their dad's house, and it turns out they're separated. And while they, like go out to buy candy or something, the dad tells his wife, you know what, I officially want to sign the divorce papers. I want to marry this girl that I've been dating. Which my first thing about the girl Grace, it's interesting because you never see her face until about 21 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
But the only reason he meets this girl is because he actually wrote a story about her, about a cult that she was in, this religious cult. And I guess it's just a little weird that he met her through that. She's this traumatized woman, and right off the bat, the moral of the story is don't date the subject of your cult book.
Yeah, I mean, she was if I remember right, she was the only survivor of an entire cult, and like the entire cult had like a suicide pact kind of thing, and she was the only one to live through it. And yeah, he writes a book about the cult and finds all the like found footage, and it shows found footage throughout the movie of the cult and like what they did and what they were kind of representing, kind of give you a glimpse of what was going on through Grace's head in her past. But yeah, interviewing her, he ends up just falling in love with this random girl, which is so bizarre, so weird.
So with that, the mother leaves, still upset, and goes home. And I don't know, it's just interesting because this is the first point within the first 5 minutes. I was like wondering what's going on, is building tension. And then out of nowhere, she's sitting at her table, takes a sip of her wine, and then pulls a gun out and shoots herself in the mouth.
Yep. And this is Alicia Silverstone's character, which is the really abrupt thing I was building up to earlier when I was saying like this has no setup at all. Like we did not see this coming at all. She was a little sad. She drank a little bit of wine and then bam, dead. Like what?
Yeah, it totally threw me off, and I was, like jaw actually dropped. I wasn't expecting that. But it was very effective because I mean it's one of those, like, it was very unnerving, and it, like, the way the camera is moving throughout these opening scenes, it's just kind of weird, like eerie, and then it's just so abrupt and it shows everything. So I just think it was very effective. It was well done.
It is very effective. It was very well done. It just seemed like so just out of the blue, and like I don't know. It's one of those things, like I've had someone in my life recently who committed suicide, and like dealing with that and seeing that and stuff, it's always hard to deal with, but it's always like for me in my personal life, dealing with friends and stuff that have committed suicide or tried committing suicide, it's always been a lot more of a setup for them. It was never like that abrupt. There was always like a note. There was always something. There was always like more thought that went into it. And there was just like a lot more depression and a lot more sadness that was shown. And I guess just like only getting like less than 5 minutes with this character to have her commit suicide was just so jarring, so weird. And it was effective, but it was still just like, I don't know. I kind of wanted to know more of her story of why she was going through that. Like, it just seems so bizarre to be like, hey, here's a character. Bam, dead.
Well, and to be fair, like, it is very abrupt, but I think this story is more about the kids and them going to be dealing with this new woman in their father's life. So, I don't know. I think it would have bogged the movie down even more if it spent even more time. Like we're cutting in the point where we don't know how long she's been dealing with, all this separation and all these feelings and stuff. So, but yeah, from there, then it gets to the part that you started talking about, how after the funeral, It cuts to 6 months later, and the dad is talking to the kids about a trip.
Yep. And then he's setting up like a dinner for his family. He sets up 4 plates, and the kids are kind of wondering what's going on. He says, "Hey, I'm bringing Grace over. I want to have dinner with you guys, and I want to bring her on the trip because I'm going to be asking her to marry me." And just kind of throws it all in one, just like we're going on a trip all together, and this, which is kind of weird and kind of harsh. And I mean, like at some point, I know you kind of got to try to move on and stuff, but to these kids, she is the reason her mother committed suicide. And he's immediately wanting to put him in a position where she's going to be alone with him for 3 days in a snowed-in cabin, far away from everything and everyone, with like hardly any ways to get a hold of anybody else.
Yeah, well, and I think it also has a lot of meaning to them because it's a family lodge that they stayed at as a family, and they're going up there for Christmas. And yeah, he's gonna leave the kids with her for a couple days up there while he has to finish up some work, and then he'd be back, on Christmas Day or the day before. And I think it's a lot for the kids to have to deal with, where you know, they're putting all this blame on this woman that it's really not her fault.
It's not,
but it's a really rough situation.
Yeah, in the eyes of a child, it's hard to disagree with their points, because in their eyes, it's almost exactly what is the cause. Like, especially if their mom was bad mouthing Grace the entire time that she was separated from her husband, like when she had the kids, because it seemed like even the mom didn't like her at all either. And so that kind of makes me wonder then. And then we kind of get into weird stuff where like the kids are really starting to snoop around. They start searching through like their dad's computer, trying to find out information about Grace. And they start like planning some stuff with their dollhouse that they have. And this is what I mean with a little bit of foreshadowing. You first get to see glimpses of what their plan is right from the start with the house, the dollhouse.
Well, it's crazy because this dollhouse, it's a like replica of the lodge they're going to be staying in. And I don't know, I feel like it's the lodge thing is really interesting in kind of setting up what might happen or what might not be happening. But also I was wondering, like, I was very confused about it. I'm like, is this kind of like a Hereditary wannabe? Because Hereditary did a lot of stuff with dollhouses too. So I was like, I mean, it's effective for the most part, but I think in this movie, it's overdone. If they did it just a few times, it'd be fine. But it's like every other scene, and I don't know, it was bizarre.
Yeah, well, and the thing with like Hereditary doing that is it just seemed to be because she was a person who designed miniatures and stuff like that. So she designed a lot of these things and did a lot of that was just part of her life. But to have like a scale model of the lodge that you go to all the time, that just seemed weird for like a child to have as a toy. And then secondly, like them going through the plans, it doesn't even really like show them going through the plans. It's just showing them like putting things in certain spots. And if you paid attention to where they place certain things in that lodge and like with their dolls, then you get glimpses of what's going to happen later on in the movie. Mm-hmm. And it's really just bizarre in every way. But then, yeah, they end up finding on their dad's computer some of the found footage of the cult, which they will use later.
Yeah, they find the footage, they find the articles, and it explains everything. The 12 members of the cult were found dead, and she was the only survivor. And yeah, he wrote a story about her, and they ended up getting together afterwards. But after that, they go up to the lodge, and at first everything seems like it's okay with the father there, and but the kids are kind of just still uneasy about Grace. Like they go ice skating outside the lodge, and when Grace goes outside, the kids point out that the beanie she's wearing is actually their mother's. So she hands it over, and it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah. And it's tough to be in those situations too. I feel so bad for Grace throughout most of this movie. Honestly, like I think Grace is the biggest victim of this entire movie, because like the dad's putting her in awkward situations. The kids are being relentless towards her and have all these ill feelings towards her because they blame her for their mother's death, which I don't see why they don't blame the father at all.
Well, I also don't think they should be putting blame, but um, also, oh man, I was just thinking of something to what you were saying. I don't know, but Grace is raised in an environment of like extreme guilt and shame. So, I mean, it's definitely hard watching everything she's going through,
Yeah.
but I I don't like the idea of like putting blame on her.
Yeah. So we get through like this kind of point here, and I think this is the point where the little girl, her doll goes into the like part of the ice that's broken when they're all outside doing the ice skating and stuff. And Grace actually goes over there and like, hey, step away from there. I don't want you to fall into the ice. And then she goes up and actually like saves her doll, but then she falls into the ice. And right then we actually see the kids panicking. And I'm like, oh, well, the kids actually might have a heart after all. They don't want her to drown or die in this like cold water. Like if they really had a lot of like ill intentions, why not just let her drown right there? Like the father hadn't noticed yet.
Yeah, and I actually think it's like I mean the kids didn't care. They cared more about the doll. At least the girl did.
Yeah.
But I find a fun fact about that scene. The actress that played Grace, she actually did the stunt herself, falling into the ice and then coming out of it.
Oh,
And they
jeez.
did a couple of other things like that in the movie too. But it's kind of cool that she did her own stunt there.
Wow. I mean, it looked real. So like that's crazy though. Like actually knowing that that was real. But yeah, after that, they warm her up and everything. This is kind of where the dad kind of says like he has to go do some business stuff and he's going to be gone for the next couple days, and he'll have his cell phone on him. Blah 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 blah. Take care of the kids. Kids listen to the Grace. Let's set up like Christmas decorations. Let's get everything going. And this is where the kids really start messing with her. Like the daughter, like, hey, can I show you what I made for my dad? And she's like, that would be awesome. I'd love that. And she's like, oh, well, here's a video of every happy memory with my mom. And I'm like, oh.
What what I like about how this movie goes about that is it's it's not directly showing that the kids are doing this on purpose. And even
Yes,
everything that happens, you don't find out the kids are even involved until close to the end of the movie.
that's
So
true.
this first part, it seems all innocent, and the girl's like, "You want to see what we got my dad for Christmas?" And showing them like it's home movies of their old times at the lodge. So I thought
Yeah.
it was really sweet. And then some of the other stuff that happens coming up, it's like, it's not direct unless you upon rewatches and pay attention to certain details,
Hmm.
you don't think the kids are doing anything wrong.
Yeah. Oh, one of the other things I totally spaced out earlier, and I wanted to kind of point out when we were talking about like the suicide and stuff, and we're talking about religion. This family is also a very Christian religion family as well. And this is one of the things, the problems that I see with really shoving religion down kids' throats as much as they were in this movie. Because at one point, after the kid's mother committed suicide, the daughter was so upset and she was crying at night and she couldn't get to sleep. And the dad came into the room and was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And she's like, "Mom's never gonna go to heaven, and she can't. I won't even be able to see her in the afterlife because she's instantly going to hell." And it's like such a horrible thing to like believe as a child, that because your mom committed suicide, you'll never get to see her again if there is an afterlife, and she believes there is an afterlife. And I'm like, I just thought that was kind of an important thing to notate too throughout this, because it also kind of gives more motivation to her.
Well, and I mean, with the whole cult side of it too, they're like a huge religious cult. So I mean, there's
Hmm.
there's definitely a lot of religious undertones and like imagery and
Yes.
stuff. But so after the dad leaves, they decide to hang out and watch movies and have a good time. And I think this is a really good scene here because they're watching the movie The Thing, and
Yes.
it's the first scene it shows from The Thing. It shows a few scenes, and it's one of the characters referencing cabin fever. And, I also like that they're watching that movie, and just like that movie, this movie, you have no idea where the threat is, or if there even is a threat, or who the bad person is of the movie. The whole movie, like, there's not really a defined bad guy, or you're just not really sure if there even is a threat. So I think it's a really cool, like, play, like, showing that.
I don't think I actually caught on to that, but you describing it like that makes it like that much more intriguing, honestly.
Yeah, like, I mean, like I said, the movie, it's very slow, and there are definitely some scenes they can cut out of it. But
Yeah,
I mean, some of the stuff it does well, it does really well.
true. All right.
But as they're watching the movie, they're getting cold, and it seems like the kid Aiden, he's coming around to her finally, and he brings her like some hot cocoa, and they go get a little gas heater out to warm them up because the fireplace just isn't doing it. And little foreshadowing, the gal points out that, man, you could really smell the gas coming out of that thing. I hope that, it's okay. And the kids are like, ah, it always smells like that. Don't worry about it. And they fall asleep watching the movie.
Yep. I'm trying to think of what's after that.
Well, I mean, after they wake up and they notice all of their cell phones are dead,
Oh,
and
yes.
Grace starts noticing like everything is like the power's out, the lodge power is out, there's a blizzard outside, and everything is missing. The
Yep.
fridge is empty, items are just gone.
All of her clothes, her medication, most of the food except for like a couple of cans of stuff and maybe some like saltines. Like it was like bare minimum stuff to be able to like ration out to keep alive just for a little bit of time, but it was like not anywhere near enough of the stuff that was actually there. And immediately Grace is like, what are you up to? Like, why are you doing this? What are you up to? And I didn't do anything. I don't know what you're talking about. Everything's just gone. Everything's missing. Our stuff's missing too.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. And I mean, you're really questioning, like, is Grace crazy, or are the kids crazy? Like, the kids even mention, like, during the nighttime, they hear Grace walking around, and throughout the movie, it shows her dealing with some, trauma and mental illness of all the cult stuff, and she's been taking some medications and stuff, and now her medication's missing. So they point out, we hear you walking around at night all the time. So she starts getting in her own head, like, is it me? Which it might be. It's the movie keeps you going.
Yeah. No, it really does a good job of that, especially because you really just don't know like what is going on. Like, and you're with Grace a lot of it. Like you start questioning the older son especially, but then when he says stuff about her, then you're like, well, is it Grace? And or is it just some like weird being or some weird time dilation, like Blair Witch kind of style stuff, or like what is going on? And then the kids start throwing more and more stuff out there, like maybe we died, maybe we're not here anymore, maybe something's happened.
Well, and that comes up after, they can't find Grace's dog,
Oh
and
yeah,
they go outside looking for it. And then as Grace comes back from looking forever, and there's this long outdoor scene that I think probably could have been taken out of the movie,
yeah,
but she finds a picture in the snow of the kids, and the picture at the bottom says in memory, and there's like a ribbon on it. And so she asks the kids about it, like, what is this? And they're like, well, I don't know. Like, and Aiden gives a really convincing performance, being like maybe we died. Like the clocks keep changing to January 9th instead of
yeah,
it's supposed to be like December 22nd, 23rd. And after pointing out the picture, Grace comes downstairs, and the kids are like praying and talking about repenting. And there's an obituary article in front of them that has an obituary about the three of them dying in a tragic gas heater accident.
yeah. This plan is so elaborate, and you're like, what the hell is happening? What is going on? There's no way they like. You want to believe that it's possible, but to the same extent, like everything in my being watching this is like, they're not dead. Like, they can't be dead. Like, they wouldn't be worried about food if they were dead. They wouldn't be worried about this. They wouldn't be sleeping. She wouldn't be doing this. But then I'm like, but she also hasn't had a medication in a very long time. What if we're just seeing her hallucinating and stuff like that? Like, you just don't know.
Well, and also I felt like, are they really going to go there? Are they going to, like, there's the horror movie The Others, when a
Yeah,
lot of the characters are dead, or even The Sixth Sense, he didn't know he was dead till the end of the movie.
true,
So
true.
I'm just saying, like, I thought they were going to go that way. And that was the first, like, big reveal of the movie is, like, wow, are they really going there? They all died. And that's why the clocks keep going to January 9th, because the obituary says the services will be held on January 9th. Like,
Yeah.
it was really elaborate.
Like, I think if it would have gone that route, it might have been a better of movie. I think them trying to allude to that but not go to that made it a little just, like, convoluted.
I think it would have been too predictable if they went that way. Like,
I mean,
I don't know.
possibly. The reveal would have had to been nice, period.
Well, I liked
uh,
it because it was a reveal, and then the
that's
next
true.
reveal makes the twist even crazier.
Yeah, so then even more and more stuff keeps happening. There was, I think I counted 66 snow angels out in the field.
I can't
Be-
believe you took the time to do that.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to count because I was trying to think of maybe like there was a specific reason for the number. Like, I wondered if that was the number of people that died in the cult. So I like rewatched the beginning over and over again, trying to figure out how many people actually were in the cult, how many people like died in the cult, how many people were killed over the years throughout the cult. And I was wondering if there was significance with that. I could not find a significance for the number, but I counted 66. I believe it was 66. Snow angels out in the field, and that was right outside of Grace's bedroom. And then throughout the nights, she keeps hearing the voice of the cult leader saying, "Repent, repent, repent," and all these other like small little things. And music's getting played, like church music and organ music's getting played from somewhere, and they could never find where the music's coming from or where the man's voice is coming from. There's even a moment where the daughter like wakes her up and is like, "Hey, what's going on? I keep hearing this man's voice." And they go looking around the house and can't find anything. And we also didn't really mention too, during this time, the son's being super creepy and spying on her, like when she's showering and like trying to like sneak a peek of her still. There's two different scenes where she's showering and he's looking in on her, and she catches him one time. But yeah, just really weird stuff.
Well, I noticed that a lot of the nighttime scenes, like it's played from Grace's point of view, but it's so vague and elaborate that you think it is actually like Grace is going nuts, or maybe some sort of entity is haunting them or taking over
Mm-hmm.
her. And I just think it's really well done. It's played out like one of those horror movies where it's a psychological thriller, and then the new twist that comes about is just, it takes you right out of it. Like, it goes so far to where I think Grace's traumas as going through the cult is finally surfacing, and
Yes.
the kids are like, the kids wake up and she's standing over them like holding a gun, and it's really bizarre.
Uh, so are we getting to that climactic point of the movie now?
Yeah.
Okay. So climactic point of the movie, Grace snaps. She is like burning hot coals in the fire and putting her knees on them. She's going around in circles on her knees in the snow to repent. She's like doing all these things that she used to do, repenting for herself when she was in the cult. And the kids are starting to freak out, like, and they actually start coming clean, like when she's really going crazy. Like, no, it was just a prank. That we're not dead. We're actually alive. Like, just don't worry. Like, this was all really messed up. We're so sorry. We really didn't mean to kill your dog. It was just an accident. We didn't mean for that to happen. We have all the food and power and stuff. It's upstairs. We've hid everything. It's okay. And she's too far gone.
Yeah, and I truly believe that the kids, it was an absolute accident with the dog. The girl was like crying and
Yes.
she accidentally let the dog out in the snow. And I mean, even like before they do the reveal, that while trying to convince Grace that they're all dead, like the Aiden pretends to like hang himself, but he's still alive while hanging
Oh
there.
yeah.
And upon reinspection, like at the beginning of the movie, when you see Aiden's bedroom, you see that his wall has a bunch of rock climbing stuff. And then as they're leaving for the lodge, as he's packing, he packs a bunch of rock climbing gear. And if you look at while he's hanging there, you can see the rock climbing rope that he's hanging from. Like he has a harness. So
Yeah.
it's like it's very subtle and hard to notice, but when you really look at it, like you get those little hints of what's going on. But after she snaps, like the kids segregate to the attic, and and they hid all the stuff in the basement, and they decide to hang out in the attic until their dad gets there, and Grace is going nuts, and then we cut to the dad, leaving them messages saying like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I can't get a hold of you, but I will be there in like 5 or 6 hours," and he heads up there.
Yep. Oh yeah. We also didn't mention throughout this entire time that the kids are one by one charging their phone enough to be able to talk to their dad and still have conversation with them and let them know everything's going well. But the weird thing to me is that he never wanted to talk to Grace throughout that however many days they were planning this and doing all this stuff. They didn't once say, oh, they were like, Grace is busy, she can't talk right now for like a couple of days. Like that was another crazy thing for me.
Well, and they never really show the kids talking to the dad. You hear Mia talking to their dad on the phone, and when Grace gets up there, the phone's dead, and she's like, I was just pretending because I really miss my dad. And I mean, she admits, later in the film that I was talking to dad too much on the phone. So it sounds like she was the
Mm-hmm.
one really talking to the dad on the phone, uh,
Yeah.
probably checking in. So I can see why he wouldn't be like, put Grace on the phone or whatnot.
Yeah.
Might have been one of
Well,
those situations.
yeah. So then Grace is just going crazy with the kids. She goes up to the attic. She like takes the doll and she says like you can't have false idols anymore and destroys the doll. And then is this is where the dad comes in? She goes, yeah.
Yep.
So then the dad comes in and he's like, whoa, 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 what's going on? Why do you have a gun? Calm down. And the kids are freaking out. They don't know what's going on. And Grace is like, we're dead. None of this is real. And like does Russian roulette kind of thing. And then like holds the gun straight at the dad. And it's like, he's like, no, give me the gun. Give me the gun. Don't worry about it. And she's like, nothing's real. We're all dead. It doesn't matter. None of this matters. None of this matters. We all just need to repent. We all just blah, blah, blah. And shoots him in the head. And that was so abrupt and like, whoa.
That was right after she pulled the trigger on her own head and nothing happened.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So it was like, yeah, she points the gun at herself, pulls the trigger, nothing happens, and then does what you said. And yeah, shoots him, and the kids freak out and they try to leave. And I love the way the scene is shot because it shows Grace kind of walking slowly through the house, and you hear the kids starting the car, pulling it out, getting it stalled, having to restart it, and you hear all their dialogue, but it's you just this wide angle just watching Grace kind of slowly walk outside towards the car.
Yeah.
It's really creepy.
Yeah, it's very tense. It's very creepy. It's probably one of the most tense parts of the entire movie, honestly, is that whole like 5-minute stint there. But yeah, then she sits down everybody at the table with like bowls of soup or something, and including the father with his bullet hole in his head, and then the two kids, and the kids are sitting there like crying and wondering what's going on. And I think this is where she puts the sin thing on them all, like the tape.
Yeah, so the cult earlier in the movie, when the cops found all their dead bodies, they had duct tape over their mouths with the word sin written in Sharpie on them. So Grace is at the table with them at the end, and she sings a hymn, and then she puts tape over her mouth and then walks around and puts tape over the kids' mouths. And I mean, it's very clear what's about to happen, but then the movie, after she puts the tape over their mouths, the camera cuts to black and credits roll.
and you know that she killed them both and then killed herself, most likely.
Yeah, it was very clear what was about to happen. Like, I don't think it was meant to leave any ambiguity or anything. It's like, no, this
Yeah.
is how it's ending. But and I think it was effective in not showing it. But at the same time, like, it was at first very confusing. And I mean, because it shows her standing there and having the tape on their mouths, and then it cuts to the table, and the table has the revolver with two very, you know, visible bullets
Yeah.
in the cylinder there, and then it cuts back to them and cuts the black. So it's an abrupt ending, but at the same time, it's like, finally.
Yeah. So I guess like anything else you really want to talk about with the movie? We pretty much went over most of it.
Yeah, it was long.
Yeah.
It was long,
It
just like
feels
this review.
so long.
If you listen to this whole review, you got the movie. You don't have to watch it now. And if you were curious in watching it, like, check it out if you're interested in the type of film, like I said earlier. But I don't think it's really worth the watch more than once if you choose to watch it. But if you are only kind of interested, don't check it out. You watch better movies.
And I should say it's worth a stream. It's not worth a rent. I wouldn't pay money to watch this.
Yeah, absolutely. But, so you got anything else?
The only thing else I had in here was just, I think the music in this movie gets a little too loud sometimes, and it's just a little too, like, really, like, cheap ways to make you uncomfortable.
I can see that. And, like, I was about to say, what music? There's, like, 2 scenes of music, and I think that's why it's uncomfortable, because most of the movie is pretty quiet. It's very silent, and then you have, like, a couple scenes with this loud music. So I could see where it's kind of frustrating, but I think it's effective.
Well, and then, I just, like, also just wanted to know, like, what kind of medication was she on? Like, was she actually taking something to stop hallucinations? Was she suffering from hallucinations? Like, is that something that she thought for real was a possibility with not taking her medication? And that's why she believed so much of this?
I'm thinking that the medication was more to, like, symbolize, you know, her going through that trauma when she was younger, and she probably went to, like, therapy, or she got some sort of help, and she was probably prescribed that medication to help her through something. So I think that's all it was really meant to be. I don't think it was meant to be, like, looked into too hard.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I think that's everything for that one.
Yep, that's The Lodge. So next week, join us for the Lego movie.
The Lego movie.
We'll see you then.
Bye.